We are in week 6. We have a couple of things to discuss for today. And okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is kind of a continuous of the linear search stuff we had started already a few weeks ago. So what is the whole story of this guy? That's, like I said, that's the continues on the linear search. Let's talk about an example. Okay, so 3 of the tasks on this lab sheet require you to use linear search. So in this lab sheet, that's kind of a lecture plus lab sheet, both of them. That's a mixture of both of them. So we will discuss something, and we will have some test also in here to see what's the whole story. So you need to use the linear search, but maybe in a more advanced way than we have seen previously. We will see how. Okay, so the first example we want to go through is that's standard input. That's an example like this. The standard input consists of a single line of text. Imagine that's the standard input we want to read using one of the input commands, and then we want to write a Python script which outputs each token 1 per line, something like that. So if the sentence or the text or something like that, 1 line of sentence, 1 line of text, let's say, we enter to the input is something like that, we want to separate them and put each token in a specific line. How this task could be done? Let's have a look at this example in here, as you can see. So in this example, as you can see, first of all, we will get the text of input. Since that's a string, so we need to use the raw input in here. Then we want to go through data string one by one and try to extract them and print them, each one on a separate line, right? So to do that, we need to set a counter I equal to 0, and then we need to say I as long as I is less than length of s. How much is the length of s? Length of s is the length of this string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. That's the length of the string we have written already in here. So I assume it should be 23, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, that should be something like that. Then you will set another counter, which is j is I plus 1, and then you will say as long as j is less than length of s, 2 conditions at the same time, and s of j is not empty, is not kind of space or something like that, then increase the j. So let's start from the beginning. I is 0, so then j is 1. J is less than length of s, which is 23. Yes, it is. And then is s of 1 non-equal to empty? If that's s, you know that guy is s of 0, and that guy is s of 1. Okay, yes, s of 1 is not equal to a space. Okay, I will increase j. J would be 2. Again, I will continue until one of these condition is not satisfied. This one is going to be satisfied because the length of s is 23, so it's not going to be dissatisfied very soon, but this guy will be unsatisfied as soon as he will get to this area. So as soon as we are in here, we won't increase j, so j would be then the counter which points to the last character of Mary, and then we will jump in here, we will finish the while, and also we will finish this. We don't finish this while because indentation, if you look at the indentation, you see this part still is a part of this guy, this while. So we will finish this while, we will come here, we will print from the beginning, which was 0, right, to j, which was the end of Mary, So this way we have extracted the position of beginning and the end of the word Mary. Okay, so we are ready to do that. We will print that character. We will set I to the point which is the next one. What was j? J was the position of this blank space. Why? Because here we checked if s of blank space. Let me see if the question. No, we were checking here if it's where is the location of the first blank space. Okay, so j is the location of this guy, so I will set I to j plus 1. That means I will set I to the beginning of the next word. Then I will back in here, I will go in here, I is the next of the I, so I would be then this guy in here, or sorry, this guy in here, because I was in here. So j is I plus 1. I will go through that, try to detect the next white space in here. As soon as I detect the next white space, since still I'm inside the string, I have not reached the end of the string, so I will print the next word, and then I will back again in here. I will continue until I reach to the end of the string, which is here. As soon as I get to that point, I will finish the while, and that's all. And then that would be the result. So in this example, I try to go through the code to see exactly what happens when you are writing, implementing an algorithm, or when you are writing some codes to implement, to address a question, something like that. You need first of all to think how you should go through the problem, how you should solve the problem, and then you should start writing the codes. It's not like start writing the codes and see that code, what does this code do? No, you should think first of all to say, okay, let me see, first of all I want to detect the words. If I want to detect the word, I can start from the beginning, and then I can go through the characters of the word until I reach to a white space in here. As soon as I reach to the white space, I need to know where is the last character of the word and what was the first character word, and then I can print that word, and then I can continue. As soon as you know that philosophy, then you can jump to this part and start writing the code. It's not like start writing the codes from the beginning and then trying to see if it does the thing you want to do. And when I look at the result of the thing you do on the Einstein and also the exam, I see lots of submission I can see from students. So that, what does it mean? It means instead of thinking about the philosophy of the code, what the code should do, you are trying to play with the lines of the code. To start a while loop, and then that would be something you start very soon to write the codes, but that's not the thing which leads you to the result very soon. So to get a good result, first of all, you need to a little bit brainstorm on the solution you have, the strategy you want to fulfill and address the problems, fulfill the task and address the problem. And then afterward, you need to see, okay, how can I implement the philosophy I have? How can I implement the idea I have? That's very similar to the students in the primary school. If you say, if I have 10 oranges and I have 5 apples, so how many different pieces of fruits do I have? And they will tell you that's summation, that's subtraction, that's multiplication. It doesn't work this way. You need to think of the philosophy first of all. If the philosophy is you are adding something up, you have had something and something else also have been given to you, so that means you are adding something up together, so that means you should use summation. That's the same story in here. So you need to first of all think of the philosophy and idea you have to implement the task. Okay, so let's jump to the second task. Second example, imagine I have the same situation. I want to write a Python script, not the fragment. We don't have any question yet. Okay, so imagine we have the same situation. We want to take a line of text, okay, single line of text, and then we want to extract the last token. We want to extract lamp from here. And imagine, since this dot is connected, the stop point is connected, is concatenated to lamp, so that means the last token is lamp dot, something like that. Okay, so this time we want to may not contain the word split. That means please don't use a split, because if you use a split, you know that already. If you use a split, if you read this line of text, a split will detect all the different token for you into a list, and then just you need to address the last one and print the last element of the list, which is so straightforward and easy. Here just we wanted to ask you, don't use Bliss split and try to play with the characters inside the string yourself. Okay, so let's see how it works. Again, I read the input from here, and then after reading the input I set a counter again, and I will go through the string. I say I'll continue until I reach to the end of the last character of the string. And also here I want to start from the end toward the beginning. In the previous example I started from the beginning, I tried to find the white space and go on until I get all the strings. This time I need only the last character. I could do the same thing. This code also works with a little bit tweak. What could be the tweak? As soon as you get to the to this guy, the last I and j you have, instead of printing everything, you can have another print in the outside of the loop, while loop. Since you have what is I, probably you should say, yeah, you have what is I and you have what is j. As soon as you have finished the whole loop and you have got to the length of the s, of course this line will ruin everything. So you need to say, oh, anyway, when I'm getting to the end of the string, at that point I know what was the last word, and then I can print that. But that's not the efficient way to do that. What would be the efficient way to do that? And as you can see with the fewer line of the code, the more efficient way could be the way you start from the end instead of starting from the beginning. Here as you can see, I start from the beginning, j is I plus 1, I was 0, j is 1. I start from the beginning and go on until I get to the end of the string. But here I start from the end. What does it mean? Length of s is 23, let's say. I is 0 in here, and minus 1 is, so 23 minus 1, that means one character before the end. Okay, is that blank space, empty space? No. So increase I and then go up and then decrease. Why I'm increasing I? Because I'm reversing back the position of s in here. I continue until I get to this point. So the first time I'm inside the while loop, this guy is the length of points to the last character, and minus 1 is here. Is that blank? No. Okay, I will increase I, so that means I will decrease this guy, so that means I will jump one more character back. Is this blank space, white space? No. So I will increase I, that means I will decrease this guy, that means I will jump one character back again to here. Is that white space? No. Increase I, decrease this guy, that means I will jump to L. Is it blank? No. Increase I, decrease this index, and then I will get in here. Is that blank space? Yes. So it is yes. The loop is finished. I'm done. I know where is the location of the blank space, which is I. Okay, so then I will print if the length of, I will discuss that later. So then I will print s from length of s minus I, 23 minus the location of this guy, so that means the whole length minus the location of this guy, so that means I'm in here. Okay, to the end colon and nothing, that means to the end. So I print from here everything. So why this guy works? Because I want to know if the length of s is greater than 0. Why? Because I want to make sure if I have entered anything in here. Why I need to do that? Because if I don't do that, that means the length of s is 0. 0 minus 1 is location minus 1, position minus 1. To the end, it doesn't make sense and it will generate some error for you. So that if is only for the sake of preventing the error. If that's the situation, if I run the code, if I don't put anything into the character and exit this line of code, and then that means s is empty, that means length of is 0, you may work through this guy, you won't see any error because I is less than length of s. Length of s is 0, I is 0, 0 is not less than 0, so you don't go through the while loop at all, but that's okay, you won't receive any error. Or when you come in here, if you don't have this line of if, that means this guy will generate some error for you. So to prevent the error, you need to tweak that. In the beginning, when you are a beginner in programming, probably you don't understand these things. Probably you don't care about these things in the first glance. But afterward, when you receive the error, you see why this error happens, etc. And then slowly you understand, oh my god, that's because of this guy. And then you will add this line on top of this guy. And then slowly, when you get a little bit more sophisticated programmer, that's the point you see you need to add that in the beginning. That's not something you should add after reaching to the error. Okay, so let's go to the example you should practice with. So we are working with the CSV file. If you remember, we have started working with the CSV file already. So imagine I have a CSV file with these things inside that, and then I want to run the code, and the code will ask you, please let me know what is the third field, position 3 in the header. You know, in the CSV files, what is the CSV file? A file with lots of text inside that, separated with commas, and also the first line is header. That was the definition of CSV, comma separated file, something like that. Okay, so in this code we'll ask you to let us know what is the index, what is the field of the position 3. So we need to write something like that, so that will be the output. So please write this code yourself and upload it into Einstein for this afternoon and Monday. That's the task of this afternoon anyway. So the field NS is at position 3, and you need to remember it is started from 0. So you need to read this text. You need to read the first line into somewhere. You need to probably, I don't know, separate things using the comma, split the things using the comma, or you need to read the things yourself to see what is the whole story of, detect the comma yourself. Finally, you need to get to this point and print this out. Imagine we have another task very similar to this one, but this time we will give the ns as the input. You know, that's the argument. We will get that using the arg, and you know the arg0 is the name of the file, which we don't care about, but we care about the ns, the arg1. So you get the arg1, and you need to say what position is this. And please don't use the word split. If you wanted to use a split in this one, but don't use a split in this one. Definitely try to work with the characters yourself in the first line to see what is the position 3. What should you do in here? The thing you should do in here is you need to work with the comma. Try to check any specific. You remember in here what we did in here? In here we used to check the white space to see if we are in the white space. So that's the first word, second word, third word, and so on, right? But here that's the same. Just you need to check to see if you reach a comma. If you reach the comma, I would say that's very similar to the previous example I showed you. But in this case, you need to check the comma. And as soon as you reach to a comma, you need to say stop, please, and take everything in here, put it in somewhere. But you need to have a counter if you are looking for the position 3. If you are looking for position 3 here, you need to say, when I detect the first comma, I have finished the position 1. When I detect the second comma, I have finished the position, that's position 0. I have detected the position 1. When I detect the third comma, I have detected the position 2. And then when I detect the next comma, I'm in the position 3. If I'm in the position 3, I know the address of the beginning, I know the address of the last, and if that's everything into my string s, I need to print out only the things of a string from this location, this position to this position. So very, very similar to this guy, but this time you need to care about the comma. And when we talk about this guy, that's very similar again. You need to detect the commas. After you detect the comma, you need to extract this part from the string, and you need to check to see if what you have extracted is similar to ns or not. If it is similar to ns, then you are done. then you need to just print it, and you need to set a counter and count it. The first time, is it equal to the argument I have? No. Okay, increase the counter. Counter was 0, then counter is 1. Then is it equal to the argument I have? No. Increase the counter. Counter is 2. Is it equal to what I'm looking for? No. Increase the counter. Is it equal to what I'm looking for? Yes. What was the counter? 3. Print the counter for me, please. That's all. See? Just one little thing in here you need to take care of. You need to take care of this guy. This guy is integer, right? So you need, when you read that as an argument, you read that as a string. That's not an integer. So you need to invert it into integer. Take care of that, please. You might write the code and see, well, my God, it doesn't work. So what will happen? What would be the situation? The situation is exactly what's happening now in Einstein and in the exam. I see you are uploading loads of the time. That's okay to upload loads of the time, but it would be frustrating for you, and it makes you kind of disappointed. Oh my God, why it's not working? So it's better to think a little bit. It's better to take care of everything. You know, when you take something into the as the argument in Python, that would be string. It's not like integer. So if you want to play that in terms of the string, integer, so you need to convert it yourself. So take care of these things, please. Okay, so the last thing in here is text processing. We have already worked with the text, so please write a code which is a script which is file-names.py, and if it takes you this line of strings in here, then I want you to extract only the name of the file. It might be the folder, it would be kind of a path. For example, look at that. That's in this folder, and then finally that's the file we have in this folder. Only detect the name of the file for me, and that would be the result. That would be the output. How do you do that? You can work in different way. You can extract the things. You can read the lines, the text line by line, and then after reading the text, you can split it using the slash, okay, forward slash, and then you can take the last thing. If you want, if I ask you please don't use a split, then that would be the same situation. You need to detect the line, the character forward slash, and then as soon as there is no forward slash at the end, then you need to have the address of this guy and the address of this guy, and then you need to extract this part from the text you have, the line you have, and then you need to print that guy in here, and then you need to jump to the next line. If you read them by, for example, read lines, you read all the lines into the list, and each element of the list is a specific line. Or you can set a counter yourself. You can read the first line yourself using read line, okay, and then that means you have read the first line. You can put it inside the loop. Whenever you call the read line, you read the next line. You read the next line. You didn't need to have a counter anyway. You read the lines, okay, and for each line you can do that. There is a specific example of definition why defining function is interesting, could be in this case. So you are repeating the things continuously. So just what you do in here to detect the name of the file, you can write a function for that in your file, in your script. That should be okay. It is allowed, okay, when you upload it into Einstein. And then as soon as you define the function, so whenever you want to work on a specific line, you can call the function. That function goes through everything for you and extract the thing and print the thing for you. That would be a good practice of the using the function in Python. But like I said, that's up to you. You can do that or you can skip that, you know. And the next example would be the same thing, but this guy, let me see. Yeah, we went through this guy about the same thing and repeat the previous task. This time naming your solution. This guy, your solution may not contain the word split. Maybe it means the first time you can use a split, but the second time you may not use the split. Okay, so that's the whole story. One thing you should take care of in this guy is we are looking only for, let me see, only for the Python file. As you can see here, everything has .py. But as you can see in our text, we have different extension in here. We have the ASCII, for example, right? So you need to take care of that. You need to extract, you need to do a little bit double check there. When you extract the guy, you need to, for example, you can write another function. That function checks the extension for you. You can put a beautiful name on the function, for example, extension check or ext check. And you can use the name of the file in the Camel Case. You can see start with the, you know what's the Camel Case in naming the files. That's a very standard way of naming the files in programming. You start with the small character, a small character in the beginning. For example, if that's ext and then check, you start with the small character, small e, small x, small t, and then the next word start with the capital C, and so on. If you have another word afterward, then at the end of the check you start with another capital character and go on. That's called Camel Case. It's like very similar to camel, going up and down, up and down, up and down. That's a very standard way of naming the characters, files, function, etc. in programming. Okay, so like I said, you need to take care of this guy. We are not interested in this kind of the file. And like I said, you can write another function in here. That function checks the extension for you. After you have extracted the name of the file, it detects the dot in the name of the file, the last dot, and then in the last dot, because in the name of the file sometimes it is allowed to have another dot somewhere else, so you need to check the last dot. You detect the dot in here, and then afterward you check if the last thing is ASCII or not. That's up to the case. You may make it much easier. For example, if you have only two extensions, if that's pi and ASCII, you know pi is terminated with y and ASCII is terminated with I, you might say, okay, I need only to check the last character, which is y. Okay, so after I've extracted this guy, I check the last character of the name, the string I have. If it is I, that means that's ASCII, I don't want it. If it is y, that means that's Python. Okay, so what is the usage of this strategy? It could be I'm trying to play with like some file, I want to clean the data, I want to read through the file, which I will discuss after this lab sheet about that. So I want to, first of all, in this directory, I want to read the name of all the files, and I want to put them into a list, and then I want to go through that list, read the name of the files line by one, and then I have the name of a specific file, then I can open the file, I can play something, do something with that file, and then I close the file, and then I back to the list of the files, and then take the next file, and so on. So that could be a real world example you want to doing that. Like I said, for checking if that's the file you are looking for, in this case I said if you know that's Python and ASCII, you might say, okay, I'm looking for the Python file, let's check only the file. But sometimes maybe you don't know what kind of extensions are there. Maybe you have the Py and you have another extension which is terminated with Y, so that strategy maybe doesn't work because you don't know what is the whole story. You might say, okay, I will have a look at the directory myself to see what type of the character, what type of extensions I have there, and then I write the code. That's fair enough. But maybe you are facing with the situation, you don't know what kind of the file user has uploaded into your folder. So that's the case. You need to check only the .py files. Okay, these are different scenarios we are facing. Okay, we have finished this guy. Let's back in here. Let's go to the file input and output. In this example, we talk about I introduced a real world case that you have lots of files. You want to open the file, read something from the files, or write something into the files, and then close the files and go to the next task you have. Okay, so the topic of this guy, this lab sheet, is file input and output. Again, I emphasize that these guys are lectures plus lab sheets, so please, there are tasks inside them. You need to go through all of them in this week. So by far you saw we have sysarg, which help us to read the arguments when we call a function. We call a script in Python, and then we had some function, some methods to read the things. We have some basic standard inputs, input and raw input, as you are familiar with, for integers and for strings. And also we talk about something inside the sys module. If you remember, 1 week we talked about that. We have read, we have read line, and we have read lines. That's the difference. And we have one function, one method here, which is called print, which is used for printing something, outputting something. Okay, so it's a good idea to talk about a little bit these things. But before that, what is the situation? What's the background? At the operating system level, when we read or write a file, we must, first of all, when we want to play with the file, let's say this way, let's put it this way. When we want to play with the file, first of all, we need to open the file. For what? For reading or writing. Okay, sometimes we want to open the file to read something from the file and play with that data and put it somewhere else. But sometimes we have the data, we want to store it into something. We write the things into the file. And then after open the file, we do the thing we want to do with the file, reading or writing the data as required, and then we will close the file. So we have some functions for doing that. We have the open, read, write, and close. They are the functions, the low-level system calls provided by the OS for the input and output. Okay, it is, look at that, it is the programmer responsibility to call them in the correct order. You cannot read or write to a file before opening it. So that's your responsibility to take care of that. You need first of all to open it, and that's your responsibility to close the file. While the file is open, a certain amount of memory is located within the operating system. You open a file, a memory is assigned to that file to read the data, okay, to manage and play with the data, because you want to read those data from the file goes to the memory, you play with the data, you want to write the data to another file, then those data from the memory are fetched to be written to the file. Okay, then if you have lots of files to play with, or your file is very large, and if you don't close the file, that means you are facing with a very famous problem, which is memory leak. What does it mean? It means you have opened the file, a lot of memory has been assigned to the file, you are opening another file, and what will happen to your memory? All the memory is assigned to your process, and you will be out of memory very soon, which is called the memory leak. What is the similarity between that and the real life? In the real life, imagine you have a set of tools on your desk. You open that set for screwdrivers, for example, you put them into the desk to do something, you don't close it, you don't pack it and leave it alone somewhere. You open this new set of tools, and very soon you will see on your desk you have lots of tools there, and even you cannot move your hand. So that's the situation. So when you open the file, you need to take care of closing the file. That's programmer's responsibility. Okay, when we play with the shell, I mean, for example, look at this shell fragment. Fortunately, shell does it itself for us. So the shell arranges that the file is opened before the command is executed, and then that is closed afterward. This is convenient because it means that the program cannot inadvertently forget to close the file. So you are free now. The shell itself does everything for you. Okay, so that's the question. Is it possible to have something similar in Python ourselves? We are thinking to solve a problem, how to implement the algorithm to solve the problem, etc., and it is possible to forget closing the file. Is it possible to have something in Python to do that? Yes, fortunately we have a special syntax in here for reading and writing the file, special syntax for reading and writing file, which allows Python interpreter to ensure that the file are open and closed correctly. What is that syntax? That syntax can be seen in this Python fragment. Okay, so you use this guy. Open is a built-in function, very similar. I'm trying to describe this thing for you. So we have a function which is called open. Open is very similar to input, length, etc. That's kind of the built-in function. What is the responsibility of the open? Open opens the file name you put inside the argument. So that method opens this file for you. Okay, and then the Python interpreter arranged that the name file is opened. We have already encountered file objects in here. Then when you open the file, you can say with open, that's in here. That's something which help you, which gives you the opportunity to have a block of code. So when you say with something as something, that means here we go, I am going to have a block of code. In this case, my block of code has only one line of code, but that's up to you. You can have any number of lines you want to have. So that's another syntax in Python. with something as something colon is a syntax which provide you with a block of code in here. Okay, so and then I say with open file as f. What does this f means? Means work with the file I'm opening as the name of n. Then I can say in f, what does it mean? My file. So if you put something else instead of, I don't have the name of the file, although you are reading in here, you don't have the name of the file. So this guy help you to play with the file. Okay, so then f help you here. Okay, so that's the syntax. Then in this syntax I say with something as something colon, that means I am going to have a block of code, and then what I'm going to do, please open the file, put the name of the f on that file, and then in here play with the file. In my file, please read lines, read all the lines for me. Okay, so that's the whole story of that. I have received some questions from some of you which you have had problem with the read line, read lines, read line, and read. Let's go through that one more time. Read lines, read all the lines for you one by one into a list. So if you have 10 line of strings in here, read lines output a list which has 10 elements, and each element is a line of the string. So easy. So if I have 5 lines into my file or string or input everything, that means if I call read lines, it will give me a list of 5 elements. Each element is one of the lines. Read line reads only a single line. So if in your input, if in your file, everywhere you have multiple lines, you can use read lines, and also you can use read line without s. But if you use read line, that's your responsibility using a counter to go to the next line. Read the next line, read the next line. Here that's your responsibility. Whenever you read line, that's not a list. It will give you a string. That string is just the whole first line, and then you can play with that. If you need the next line, you need to call it again. So probably you should put it inside a loop, a while loop or something like that. Okay, so that's the difference. This guy reads all the line, generate a list for you, and the elements of the list are lines. This guy read only one single line for you. I can use it again. I can say, okay, please open this file for me. The name of the file, name the file f in here, and then inside the block of code is please print the line for me. That means inside the file I read only the first line. Why? Because I'm calling read line. Read line reads only one single line. Okay, so I will lose the rest of the things. And you know that method is for getting rid of the things at the end of the file. All the things tailing, anything tailing. I didn't put anything in here. That means only get rid of don't get rid of anything, or if there is any space or something like that. But I can put some stuffs in here, and I say please delete for me all the dot at the end of the line, all these characters at the end of the line for me. Okay, and read is just for reading the characters. Even it doesn't read the line. Even if you have one line as the input, line of the text, which has some words and some blank space, white space, it reads for you only the characters. If you don't use any argument in here, that means it reads for you everything. Okay, it reads for you everything. I have a question in here. Let me see what's the question. Why as opposed to a strip? Yeah, a strip, that's a very good question. A strip is used to detect, a strip used to detect, to separate the things based on the character you mention. Okay, so let's do a little bit search in here. Let's control C in here. Let's open a new Chrome tab in here. Let's put this guy in here to you, and let's go, for example, to this guy. That's a very good example. That's a good very website for these things. Okay, so that's the capability I talked about. So a strip then is something for you to separate the token of the long string with the thing you say. If you put nothing into the argument, that means separate the things for me based on the white space. If you put, for example, comma, that means separate them based on the comma. If you put backslash or forward slash, it separates the things for you. And what would be the output? The output would be a list, and each element of the list are the element which are separated using the character you asked for. But our strip is getting rid of the end of the thing. Look at this thing, for example. I have a string which is this is good, and then some white space in here. If I want to do print string, print this guy, that's Python 3 anyway because of that parenthesis. If I don't put anything, it does nothing for you because you don't do anything, or it gets rid of these guys in here for you. Okay, but if I say please R strip for me based on this character, it says if you have this character at the end, please delete the thing for me. See, I don't have something like that at the end. See, I have I don't have something like that. So if I want to say please R strip at the end this thing for me, it doesn't do anything for you. It won't do anything for you because it doesn't make sense at the end. But let's look at this one. SID space OO. SID space OO. I have OO, right? Okay. I have D. Okay. I have I. Okay. And I have S. Okay. So that means I have these characters, and also I have a space. Okay. That means please at the end, whatever character you have like this, delete for me. And let's look at that. It starts to getting rid of these things from here. It gets rid of deleting D space OO for you only. See, it gets rid of this part for you. Why it doesn't get rid of S and I? Because it's not included in this part. Okay, so what's the point of this thing? The point of R strip is just to get rid of characters at the end, but the stripe is to separate the things, the tokens inside something. You can, like I said, you can search yourself whenever you are in conflict with something. Let's look at this guy. Let's see what this guy says in here. So you have a string in here again, and then you want to say this guy. So as you can see, it only gets rid of this space and this space. Okay, but what about this guy? And I want to get rid of the 8. It means 8 8 8 8. This is 8 8 plus 8 at the end are deleted because 8 is the final character, and you say please delete for me 8s, whatever 8 you have, all the 8 in here are deleted. So you have this character. See, that was another example from this guy. So if you go to Geek for Geeks, oh my god, if you go to Geeks for Geeks, where was that? In here. So let's see what happens in here again. So you can see different things in different codes. You are with the E case, and you can see nothing is deleted. Why? Because you have an S, you have an S after EK, so it cannot delete the thing for you. Why? Because this guy only deletes the things at the end, so it is something like nothing. What about the SKE? So the SKE, if you want to detect, that's this thing. Okay, so these are all the examples. Let me see the question again. Thank you, no worries, you're welcome. Okay, so that's the difference. We are out of the time a little bit, we should speed up. So that's the whole story. And like I said, for the read, actually you read all the character, and if you say read n, you read only n number of characters. For example, if you say please for me read 4, that means read only the 4 first character, and then the 6, that means the next 6 one. It doesn't start the beginnings because you have already read the first 4 characters. And sometimes you might say read the a million character, okay? Maybe it doesn't mean it will back to you with a million character. That's up to the size of the character you have inside the input, okay? And writing the files, that's very similar. You will use the same syntax, but this time you will add this guy in here, which means please write the things. I'm going to open this file to write the things. If you don't put the thing in here, that means that's the default version, which is read. You can read from the file. But if you want to write into the file and don't put these things, you cannot. You are not able to write to the file, and you will receive some errors because you have opened the file for reading. But if you want to write the things, you need to add these guys in here, okay? And then, for example, you can say in the file I have opened with the name of F for me, please write this character into that. It will write the things for me. So I have some task here for you. So that's an example anyway. That's not a task. We want to write a character. We want to write a code, which that code, as the first argument, takes the name of the input and the name, and then the name of the output, and then the name of the input files. In this case, we have 2 files, right? So I import sys because I want to play with the argv. The first thing, you know, the 01 is the name of the file. I don't care about. And then the next thing is the name of the next thing is the name of the output, and the rest are the name of the input. That would be a list. Then I will open the output as the in term of the writing. I will call the name of the file f out, and then set a counter. You can go through the code yourself since we are in the time shortage. And then I have opened the file to write inside. I open the first line, the first input file, okay? I want to open it, read whatever is inside the guy, and write the things inside the file I want as the output, okay? But this time, take care of when you open 2 files at the same time, you need to put them into different name, because if you put the name the same, then you cannot play, you will miss one of them, okay? So be careful about that. In this case, then I say open this guy, read this guy, whatever you read, please write inside this file, change the counter, go to the next file, open it, write it, go to the next file, and when you are finished, you are done, okay? The solution to would be something like that. Maybe your file has lots of characters inside that, your input file, and that's crazy to read all of them in one chunk. I mean, if you want to read the full file into this guy, into one character, like what? Like in here, reading the things inside the guy in here. I had it was somewhere else. I don't have it anyway. Anyway, I was saying, actually, if the file is big enough, if the file that you are reading is big enough, so you are dealing with lots of characters and string in here. So it would be the memory problem, it would be a slow everything. So you might limit it to a specific chunk of data. You might say, okay, my chunk size is like that. Okay, I read the output file name, input file name into this list. I open the output file with W, that's the name of the file. I'll go inside that. I'll take the name of the first file as F input. And then, instead of reading the whole file, please chunk this size for me. Not reading everything, okay? And then go to the character and write that chunk into the file, and back, continue reading the rest, continue until to finish the first file. After you finish the first file, get the second file name, open it, go through that using the chunk, read that chunk size into the chunk, and go to the file and start to writing that until you finish it. That would be the observation. I don't go through that, you can read it yourself, okay? And then there are some tasks. The task, open write this file, this Python script, and then write please this character inside that. The next file, the next example, the next task is I have this input file. You can define this input text for yourself, and then try please to write it yourself. Okay, these are the tasks you can go through that. Let's jump to the, for example, in this one you open two files. You open a file something like that, you sum something inside that file, you sum everything inside that file and generate the output, or write it in another file. So you can, you know what do I mean. So you go through that. And the last task we need to do is text to HTML. Okay, that's a very short summary of the HTML. You know, we have some languages like the ASCII code, ASCII doc, ASCII doctor. That's the language I'm writing this website using that. And these are called the Markdown languages. Okay, so when you want to work with the HTML file, it is crazy writing HTML file. So for example, if I want to generate a file like that, so let me see if I have the file somewhere in here. Yes, I have it. Let's open it into another tab in here. So that would be this file. For example, I want to generate this website, let's say this HTML file. That could be the whole HTML stuff. I need to write to see that what is in there. You have different tags in here. You need to start with HTML, finish with /HTML. That's the body. Start with the body, finish with the slash body. You have different things. These things H1 and H2 and H3, 4, so on, are for the headings. P is for the paragraph, and so on. Okay, so by playing with that, you will generate these things. But you can do that in much easier way. You can use the Markdown languages, for example, ASCII doc or ASCII doctor. This guy will give you the H1. This guy will give you the H2. This guy is used for the bold, for the italic, and again that's the H2. That's the code, part of the code, and so on. That would be the result finally. Okay, so that's the Markdown language. And then the format, the blocks, I discussed these things. Like I said, you can have the list. Using this guy, you can have the list, unnumbered, numbered, blah blah, etc., pre-formatted paragraphs, etc. I assume at this time of the year, I mean at this time of your study, the second year, some of you should be familiar with the HTML, CSS stuff, etc. But if not, that's a good opportunity to go through that and have a look. But like I said, the Markdown languages are very interesting languages. ASCII doctor, ASCII doc, etc. Even in GitHub, you have the Markdown languages. It's a good idea to get familiar with the Markdown languages. Okay, and what's the task? In this task, write a Python script which accepts some number of command line arguments, each being the name of the marked-up input file. For each such file, your script should generate the corresponding HTML file. For example, you get this markdown and you generate the HTML file of that. That's exactly the same thing I'm doing for this website. I generate first of all a file like that, and then I create an HTML file from that. See, that's the extension of the file I have in here, HTML. Okay, there is no Einstein marker for this task, but you might name your script. Please upload your task in here. Like I said, there is no marker, so you won't see if the result is correct or incorrect, but you will see your file has been uploaded in here, like I say. So please upload your file with this name. I will go through that and see what has been you are doing, and that's some note for you in here. Okay, so that was fast and furious way of going through these things. You have some task in all these files, as you can see. That's not called lab sheet anymore now in this week, but they are the tasks. And like I said, 9 p.m. Monday next week is the deadline. That's the lab sheet. You need to go through that. And I'm reading the whatever you put into the lab sheet, and in this week I went through some of the example for you to satisfy the question you ask. Hopefully it has been helpful and beneficial for you. Next